Our next speaker is Andy Porter, and he will be speaking on the topic of transparent consumer service. Andy has worked as a business consultant, manager, lecturer, and teacher for more than 30 years, traveling through 25 countries on 5 continents. And his experience includes work in retail, medical, manufacturing, and more. Andy is also a well-known landscape photographer. Hopefully we'll have some good images up there, perhaps, capturing the stunning beauty of northwestern Washington State. So, would you join me in welcoming Andy Porter?
My topic today is transparent customer service. Customer service is a topic that I'm very, very passionate about. I'm one of those people that gets irritated, unfortunately, rather easily whenever I call a company and I have to spend 10 minutes on the phone before I can talk to a person. And I'm kind of irritable about customer service, I must admit. I don't know if you've ever done anything where you were a bad customer, but one of my confessions is once I called my cell phone company and I was mad at them. I was in a sour mood. And I kept telling them my customer account number. Of course, I had to go through my name and address and phone number and my dog's name and my mother's maiden name and my social security number. And after all that, they couldn't find me in the computer, and it went on for 10 minutes with me getting more and more irritated until I finally realized that I had called the wrong cell phone company. At which point, in a state of horrible embarrassment, I hung up. So I'm not really proud of this, of course, but anyway. So customer service is what I'm going to talk about a little bit today. So part of the program that I'm going to discuss is basically a system of collecting, gathering, sharing, and then discussing customer comments in a group, which I found very effective in all the places that I've worked. So, you know, customer feedback is an interesting thing. I don't know, have you ever seen a company where you go in and you look around for their customer comment box and it's like hidden somewhere in the back behind a plant? Like they don't really want, do you know what I mean? Like the whole comic of like the, you know, customer feedback box is above a shredder. You know, so you write your comment and, you know, we don't really want to hear what you have to say. But of course, any business is very interested in, you know, all the feedback that you get from your customers. And yet, really very few companies, I think, get enough feedback. And so the first thing I wanted to discuss a little bit is how you can gather more and more feedback, and then, of course, we'll get into what to do with it. But in terms of gathering feedback, every company, business, entity, corporate, nonprofit, what have you, has a website, and all of them should have on there a very prominent page where you can offer feedback. I don't know if you've ever gone to a company like Best Buy or Home Depot and you get the receipt and you can fill in the survey and you might win $5,000. Has anyone ever done those surveys? I've done them before and I've never won the $5,000. But anyway, most of those surveys that you'll see online are a long, long list of questions where you have to, you know, rate each thing on a 1 to 10 scale. I don't like any of that stuff. So my viewpoint of a website customer service survey would be maybe 3 or 4 or 5 possibly pointed questions and then one box where the person can write whatever the heck they want about your company, good or bad. Feedback can be gathered by, for example, if you send out statements. This is also always a great way, or a good time to ask for feedback is when you're asking for money, because then the customer might tell you some different feedback, good or bad. But you know, you can send customer service surveys, comment cards, along with your bills or statements when you mail them out. If you have employees that go on site to a business, then they can bring their customer survey, and when the customer signs right that you were there, then you can give them the customer survey form. One of the main ways, actually, of gathering customer service in a business is that a lot of customers, when they come in to see you, will make unsolicited comments, good or bad, about what you're doing. And at that point, it's really important to have a logbook or some system where the staff can note them down. Somebody came in and they were irritated that they had to wait. Somebody was happy because something happened as they expected it to, so on and so forth. So there's all sorts of ways that you can get customer feedback, good and bad, and the idea here is to gather it all together and have it in a logbook. So that's the gathering stage. Now the sharing. Every week when you have a staff meeting, the first step would be to read aloud every customer service comment that you get, good or bad, in front of the group. Now, As you read them, of course, you open the floor for discussion, and the employees are free to discuss what happened, good or bad. Of course, at least 80, 90% of the comments that you get will be positive. And I think people always focus on what are we going to do about the negative comments, but the reality is that, maybe with a few exceptions that I won't name, most of the comments that you'll have will be very positive. And positive reinforcement, acknowledgement of what you're doing right is a very, very important and powerful tool. You know, you have a group of people, they're working hard, they're working to service customers, do their job, and so forth. And often the positive feedback that comes in doesn't really get passed on to people. And you really can't underestimate the importance of simply sharing all of the positive input, comments, and thoughts and stuff that you get. For example, in a lot of companies, the customers will actually mail letters to you extolling your virtues and how great you are. So certainly going over all the positive ones is a no-brainer. Now let's say that there's some sort of negative comment about the company. The person waited too long in line, or they didn't think their soup was cooked right, or their eggs were too runny, or they had some other complaint. Well, the right thing to do is to read the complaint out loud, and then, if you're a good manager, you just simply let the staff discuss it and let them decide what, if anything, should be done. Now, the very fact that there's a complaint doesn't necessarily mean in any way, shape, or form that anything needs to be changed at all. It may be that you discuss a complaint in detail with the group, and basically the decision is that there wasn't anything that you could have done any better or different that would have gotten rid of that complaint. I'm sure you've seen situations like this. If you've worked somewhere where you have a customer that comes in and they complain, and you know, there's the old bag of gold story, right? The customer complains that you give them a bag of gold, and they complain that it's too heavy to carry out to the car. So, you know, just the fact of a complaint doesn't necessarily mean that anything needs to be changed. But all of the customer complaints that are obtained are transparent, they're shared, what happened, what could be done. It may be that there's a new protocol that's needed on the relay of messages. There may be a new system that you need in terms of how to schedule appointments, or what happens if a client wants to change their appointment. There may be some tweaking that you need to do in your advertisement or marketing, because maybe the people are seeing some sort of ad and then they're coming in with an unreal expectation of what's going to happen or how quickly it will happen. Now, one of the problems in all customer service has to do with fear. And this is fear on the basis on the part of the employees. And that is, goes back to the old mantra of customer service, which is the customer is always right. Now, if we take that idea and we extrapolate it on the other side, then if the customer is always right, that means that you, my friend, are wrong. And people don't really like that very much. You know, it's one of the interesting things about the subject of customer service, that they start out by basically indoctrinating you with a falsehood, because we all know that the customer is not always right, and in fact, sometimes they're crazy. So, now, but it really presents an interesting problem, because a lot of times you'll have management that will have a knee-jerk reaction anytime there's a complaint. There's a complaint, and they automatically assume that you screwed up. They automatically assume that you've made a mistake. There's some sort of assumption that the company's done something wrong and there needs to be a change. Maybe there's discipline. And this is not the right way of handling customer comments. Trust me. Another way that customer comments are also handled, which is another wrong way, is that often they're handled in private, in secret. Somebody, some manager receives a comment or negative comment about some employee, and then they meet with another manager in hushed tones in the back room, you know, kind of quietly discussing, you know, what a loser the guy is that works there, or how he's defective in some way. And has anyone ever seen any of this before, by the way? Am I just rambling here? Or I think you know what I'm talking about. So there's a fear that happens with employees where, you know, and it actually creates a situation where then they try to avoid customer comments. They don't want to collect them because they're worried if they don't get in trouble, then maybe somebody else will. I don't know if you yourself have ever been, as a customer, where you're receiving some service or product and maybe you yourself are not happy with the product or service. Do you always make a comment about it? No? I would say probably most people don't always make a comment. And what are some of the reasons that you don't? Well, sometimes you don't make a comment because you don't want to get the person that works there in trouble, or maybe you just don't have the time, or you don't think it will matter. But anyway, this system of having openness and transparency on the customer service comments tends to undo the fear that people have on they're going to get in trouble whenever there's a complaint. Trust is really a very, very important part of anything having to do with management and customer service. If you're a manager or an owner of a business, then you should trust that your employees will do the best to deliver high-quality customer service. And if you don't trust them, then they shouldn't work there. Another thing is that the employees need to trust that the management will react sanely when there's a customer comment or complaint. They have to trust that someone will take the time to discover really what happened and whether anything needs to be changed or not. When that trust is vacant, when it's not existent, then you will have customers, you will have employees that will maybe dog it a little bit on the customer service. Sometimes you'll see a thing where when the boss is there and watching everybody, the customer service is impeccable. And when it's not, then it goes downhill a little bit. So gathering every avenue you can of customer comments, sharing them openly with all the employees, and then letting the employees go ahead and decide exactly what, if any, changes should be made. That's the hot tip for transparent customer service. So that's all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed the slideshow and the pictures. Skagit County is a beautiful place, and I thought that based on the fact that we can't be outside on the beautiful weather enjoying it, that at least I'd give you something to look at there when you listen to me. So thank you very much.